Hey guys, and welcome back to another introduction of EverQuest 2. If you've watched my earlier videos, you see that I went through the archetypes of fighters and priest already, and I took you through each one of the little classes, told you a little bit about them, read the descriptions, and just from my experience playing through the game, what I have witnessed and what I expect from those classes. So we're going to go ahead and do the archetypes of Mage right now. I'll go through each one of the classes as well, read you the description. So we'll go ahead and read what they have to say about those right now. Those who wish to master the powers of magic to disseminate or subdue the enemies with naturally drawn to the role of mage. These practitioners of magic employ their arcane talents to either the annihilation or domination of their enemies. The mage is also capable of endowing party members with beneficial arcane enhancements during combat. Although the mage is limited to wearing light armor and wielding few types of weapons, these cunning sorcerers have little need of such mundane devices. Now that's true, they can only wear cloth, so you'll be wearing robes and cloth pants and sandals and things of that nature, and you'll be using, staves or, wands and things like that, staffs. But then again, your spells do enormous amount of damage, and you'll be in the back of the group. You won't really be in the front hunting, using your hand-to-hand or your weapon. That's just never going to happen. You're going to be way in the back, and you're going to be doing massive damages. So let's go ahead and pick the first class, is Wizard. The Wizard can unleash the purest form of destruction by harnessing the arcane magics of fire and ice, channeling the full force of the elements into deadly focus. No other type of mage is able to match the Wizard's ability to inflict such great devastation upon a single target. Wizards depend on intelligence as their primary stat because it determines maximum power and increases damage. Now, they refer to as harnessing the arcane magics of fire and ice. That means most of your spells will either be fire spells or ice spells. This is good and bad in some ways. If you're fighting, say, a fire creature and a lava storm, he'll have a high resistance to fire, because he's naturally, in a fire zone. So you can use your ice spells because he'll be susceptible to ice, usually in those cases. But depending on your level, you may have higher spells in fire at the moment. So your ice spells may be, 4, 5, 6 levels back, and they don't do quite as much damage. And so you may decide to actually, go hunting in a zone like permafrost, or a zone that has ice so that you can use your fire spells, or vice versa. But it does limit to you in certain areas. It's usually not that big of a deal, and they do enormous amounts of damage with their ice spell that they get. I can't remember, the ice comet, I believe, is what it's called, and you have to do a quest for that, or at least you did when the game first came out. Let's go ahead and look at Warlock. Warlocks are masters of death and decay who channel the forces of poison and disease to bring an ultimately untimely end to their enemies. By invoking these dark powers and unleashing destruction all around them, Warlocks can deal devastating damage against multiple opponents at once. And then, of course, it says it depends on intelligence as your primary stat. It's going to say that for all of these classes, so I probably won't read that every single time. But these guys are a lot like Wizards, except they are geared or tilted more towards attacking multiple enemies rather than just one enemy at a time. So Wizards will have a lot of single attack spells, where Warlocks will have more area attack spells. Now this can be nice in certain areas. If you go onto a raid, this could be devastating if used in the wrong way. Usually in a raid you will try to attack one creature at a time, so therefore Wizards may come in handy more there. But if you're soloing or you're attacking in groups and people are just pulling back to a certain area, and your tank can handle the aggro and the hits of, say, 5 or 6 creatures, and you can use your area effects, you could be very effective, devastating against those creatures, and you can just rack up the experience really quickly. So they each have their own advantages. It really comes down to how you want to play the game, what your play style is like. And of course you can always try out, if you know that you want to be a wizard kind of class, you can always try out the wizard and the warlock and kind of decide what you like. At the beginning of the game, the differences will be very, very subtle. Towards the end of the game, they will be a little bit more pronounced, but again, very subtle in the way they're doing that. So let's go ahead and check out Illusionist. Illusionists employ subtlety and distractions to impose their will upon the enemy, using their mental acuity to confuse, misdirect, and subdue their opponents. Illusionists can bring order to an otherwise chaotic environment while bestowing beneficial enchantments upon their allies, and again, intelligence is your primary stat. In the first game, Illusionists were they're basically enchanters in this game, but in the first game, enchanters could mez creatures, which would stop them from attacking, basically freeze them in place, so that you could attack one creature at a time. In this game, you get something close to that, which is when they were saying, subdue or distract. You also get some pretty good direct damage spells. You are in the mage class, the wizard's class, this archetype right here. So you are going to have that ability, but it's not going to be anywhere near as great as a wizard or warlock or even a conjurer and necromancer. You're geared towards a different way. I think Corsairs are going to be close to the exact same thing. I'll go ahead and read theirs. The Corsair is capable of subduing enemies, sending them into a paralyzing state of fascination, or causing them to flee in uncontrollable terror. Masters of domination, Corsairs can subjugate the mind of another, taking complete control and forcing an unwilling creature to do their bidding. And of course, intelligence, your primary stat. When they're talking about forcing a creature to do your bidding, you are able to charm creatures, and then they become your pet. And then you can tell them to defend you, go off and attack an enemy. But that charm can break at any time, and then that creature is going to hit you. He's going to be very mad at you. So it's a very tedious line you watch, or not tedious, but very delicate line that you have to balance on when you do that, because if you get a creature that is equal to or even greater than your level, and you manage to charm him before he hits you, well, that's great. You'll be able to use him and you'll be able to do a lot of damage. But if charm breaks, he's going to hit you, and you may not survive long enough to re-charm him. So you kind of have to decide the pros and cons of getting a high-level creature or a low-level creature, and if your skill is good enough to do that. Again, they do get damage spells and so on. Let's go to Conjurer. Conjurers are basically mages. They get pets. So let's go through possessing many potent abilities. The greatest weapon in the Conjurer's arsenal are the powerful elemental minions summoned forth to do their bidding. These dutiful servants obey their master's every command, whether ordered to stand guard or launch attacks against conjurers of foes. And again, intelligence is your primary stat. Conjurers get earth, wind, fire. I can't think of the other one right now. But you get the 4, and it alternates depending on your level. If you get fire at level 20, then at level 22 you may get earth, and at level 24 you may get wind, and so on. And then it will repeat all over again, which is nice. But then again, depending on what zone you're in, the new pet that you just got may be completely worthless because you're in Lava Storm and you just got your new fire pet, and it's just not going to work. And each one of the pets have a unique ability. Like the earth pet may root, and the fire pet may do direct damage, and the wind pet may stun. So you kind of have to take all of those things into account, but it makes your class very versatile, and your pets are usually tanks. But occasionally they may be other classes like a rogue or a wizard. So you have different techniques that you can use. I like conjurers; they're very cool. But again, necromancers are pretty cool too. They have their skeleton pets or their specters that they can summon, and that pet will basically be the exact same pet as you level, but it gets a different illusion, and of course it raises in levels as the spell levels as well. Conjurers, you have 4 different pets you can pick from. Necromancers, you're just going to get the 1. I'll go ahead and read you the description on the Necromancer. The Necromancer is an unholy master of death and decay. Dominating the unliving, Necromancers summon forth undead servants that attack their opponents without fear or hesitation. Necromancers employ dark arcane magics that weaken the enemy as they drain away its life force. And then, of course, intelligence is the stat you're looking for. When they talk about the arcane magics that drain away your enemy's life force, they're referring to Siphon Life or that line of spells. And what that is it's a direct damage spell that hurts the enemy, but at the same time it takes either the entire direct damage or a portion of that damage and gives it to you in life. So you're basically, kind of like a vampire kind of thing, where you're sucking away its life and giving it to yourself. And then, of course, you also have a spell that can take your life and give it to your pet. So, if your pet is taking the damage and you're back in the, the bag just doing a whole bunch of dots, which are just damage over time spells, and there usually be like disease or plague spells and that kind of thing because you're a necromancer. You can actually give your life to your pet since you're not doing anything with it. You're not getting attacked. It's your pet that's getting attacked. And then when you have the ability, when the recast time has come back up, you can actually siphon the life away from your enemy and give it back to yourself, and just do that in a little circle until the enemy's dead. It is very efficient to do something like that. It kind of sounds a little complicated, but you, as a necromancer, will suck a great deal of life away from the enemy when you use your Shadow Knights. Get the same spells, but because they're geared towards more being tanks, the spell they get will be several levels lower than what the necromancer will get at the same level. Usually like 10 or 15 or 20 levels lower for the Shadow Knight than what you will have at yours. And so you will drain, maybe 2 or 3 bubbles of his life to yourself. And depending on the kind of creature you're attacking, it may not look like 2 or 3 bubbles on him. It may be only half a bubble on him. But because you're a caster, it will fill your life up 2 or 3 bubbles. And then therefore you can give that to your tank, your little pet. So a very cool class to play. They also get Fatigue Death, which allows you to fake like you just died. Your guy will fall onto the floor. Your pet will still keep tanking. And then you can stand back up when the enemy walked away if your pet died, or if your pet was able to regain aggro and then kill the enemy. You can stand back up and reclaim the prize, the treasure chest, or whatever dropped, and get the update for the quest. So a very cool class to have. And again, guys, if you like these videos, if you like my descriptions, go ahead and leave a comment, hit the like button, subscribe, or, guys, you can always hit me up in game. I'll be happy to group with you guys. And stay tuned for the next installment for Scouts.